I was expecting, but I guess now, you guys, yeah. Any other? Nobody else? Yeah, you missed that last night. I don't even know what agency pulled me over last night. That's the funny thing. I forget that. Anything else that you really wanted to hear, get out of this? I know a lot of people mentioned yesterday they want to hear about funding opportunities. Anybody have anything else? What did you really want to hear? Because I've got a lot of different stories. I don't know if any of it's going to be of interest to you generally. Did you have something? Okay. All right. The 2 points that I really wanted to get across, first of all, one is to sort of, I know a lot of academics sometimes get free rides to these conferences just by going up and giving a talk on what hackers really are, sort of telling us what we already know. The point I want to get across is that when I'm talking about hackers, and then when most people in the academic community, taking the non-criminal aspect of things, are talking about hackers, we're not talking about criminals or people with criminal intent. That I think a lot of the people who come to these conferences and who are here and who want to learn are people who are trying to be real innovators. And that a lot of you who know something about hacker history, as it's promoted in the Jargon File and Stephen Levy's books and a bunch of other academic texts that have come out about hackers, is saying that this whole community is what's really responsible for all of the technical innovations that throughout the world that people are using to better communicate, to better express themselves, and to better get the things in daily life that they have to do done. And then I think now, especially with all the rhetoric about the war on terror, about how you have a lot of cultures that previously were isolated that are coming into what's becoming a much more flat world, are starting to come into increasing contact with each other. And that I think that this community, and I know other people, Rick Forno would agree with me on this. I forgot his name. Oh, crap. And this is too early to give a talk like this. But they would agree that I think hackers in this community is actually the first line of defense against a lot of the things that are being done maliciously. And I think just the term hacker has become more synonymous with criminal. And I think a lot of that, and people might disagree with me on this, but I think a lot of that actually comes from the sort of mysterious hacker criminal element that some of us, like to throw out there. We like people to be afraid, of hackers. Oh, we can read your email. Oh, we can, destroy your website if you piss us off. And I think a lot of that comes from the more immature side of things, when people are younger and they're just starting to find out about these things and their minds are more aware and ready to play with the technology, that they realize they have a certain sense of power, but yet don't have the maturity to really know what to do and how to use that power most effectively. And so I think because of that sort of rogue sort of element, the whole defacing scene and things like that, a term which used to be used with a lot of pride to describe an attitude towards innovation, to describe an attitude towards making things better for no socio-commercial purpose, just to make things work more efficiently, to be able to use technology much more effectively, has sort of turned in, through this power ethos into a criminal thing. And that when you read USA Today, when you read all the popular literature, people, equate hacker with criminal. And one of the things that I'd like the community to focus on, sort of trying to recapture that term hacker. A lot of minorities in this country have recaptured terms that used to be used with a lot of derision. The African American community, through the hip hop community, has sort of recaptured the N-word, as a way of pride, as a way of marking themselves as a community. The queer community has recaptured the term queer, which used to be a very, very derisive term and a very insulting term, and used that in turned that into something prideful, and I think the hacker community really needs to focus on recapturing that term and making it synonymous with innovation and making it synonymous with making the world a better place, as opposed to leaving it, as a term that's more equated with criminals and the criminal ethos. And sort of dovetailing from that point, getting to the core of the text that I wanted to discuss this morning, was that hackers need to emerge from the shadows a little bit more and more actively engage in the academic research community. Just going back to the history of the Hacker Foundation, for those of you that don't know, I'm the treasurer of the Hacker Foundation. I'm one of the co-founders with Jesse Krems. Jesse's going to be speaking today at 5 o'clock. And for those of you who are interested in more of the nuts and bolts specifics on how to make your project legitimate, how to get 501c3 status, how to get grant funding and things like that, Jesse's going to go into the specifics of those, run you through an example, and tell you more about how to do that. This is more of an ethereal talk. These are just the ideas that I've been floating around for the past 3 or 4 years that I've been involved with the Hacker Foundation. And just part of grabbing from the hacker term and going into research, that I really think that we need to start acting more like a research community than just sort of a bunch of people playing around in a garage. Because I think I've been involved in this community for at least, at this point, almost a decade. I'm probably a little bit older than a lot of the younger people here in the audience, and I've seen people who started out when they were 6, 7 years old, playing around with computers. I was one of those people. I had one of those old Texas Instruments with a cartridge and the speech synthesizer, and I was sitting there, and that's the computer that I learned BASIC on. And I see a lot of these really, really talented people who start out going into things. First they start learning for themselves, then they start sharing that knowledge with other people, and then they sort of get involved in the hacker community and what has evolved and become the open source community. And they're really interested in just making things better. That when you're still living with your parents' house, when you don't have to think about economic needs, and you have that little freedom time before the time that you turn 18, people are innovating, that they do a lot of really great work in then. But then, they reach 18, they go off to college, or they get kicked out of their parents' house, and they realized, oh, I have to work. I have to actually get a paycheck, I have to feed myself, I have to pay the rent, I have to pay all of my bills. And that a lot of the spirit of innovation that they had while they were working, in their bedrooms and when they were working in their parents' house sort of disappears, that they think, all right, well, I was doing a lot of this work for the community before, but now, I need to get paid. I need to go out there. And a lot of the most talented people that I've seen who even went to college and who are doing a lot of really great research and contributing a lot to the community in college have gone off and started working for corporate enterprise. And, a lot of them go into it with the best intentions. They say, well, when I was going over the offer there, they said that I'd still be able to continue working on my projects. They said that I'd still be able to contribute code back out to the community. But as anyone who's worked in a corporate environment before, they know that when you're working for them, you are working for them. You are serving their economic interests. And increasingly, as you move up in corporations, especially now that all the dot-com money has dried up, that a lot of the more charitable educational aspects of these things have been converted to pure business purposes. That when you're out there and when you're writing code specifically for your employers. A lot of times, even if you're allowed to share it, if you share it with the community, it doesn't have a really good convertible outside use. That it's for them. And then when people start getting into relationships, they start getting married, they want to buy houses, and they realize they need to move up. In these corporate organizations, they realize that I just don't have the time anymore to contribute code back to the community. And that there are very, very few corporate enterprises today, and even shrinking from the dot-com era, it's continuing to shrink. That we don't see a lot of corporate money going into developing true open source code that's portable and that serves many different needs in the community. What was that? Okay. Is it still on? Am I still on?
Nick Farr's blowing up!
God, just...
Try now.
Hello? Is that a little better? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Sorry, Nick.
No worries. So, to take you back a little bit, the year's 2002. We were at DEF CON, I think 10, was it?
9.
Okay, it was DEF CON 9. The previous year I had actually given a talk based on some research that I had done at the University of Michigan about human-computer interaction. I got to know Jesse at the time. He was the only speaker goon at DEF CON, and we sort of got to chatting about human-computer interaction, and the conversation led to humanitarian work that hackers could be doing. And he said, we've got Doctors Without Borders, you've got Journalists Without Borders. It would be really cool if we had an organization that was more like Hackers Without Borders. And I thought that was a really good idea, because I think that a lot of the work that hackers do can be specifically geared towards more humanitarian-oriented projects. Helping people in Africa communicate better, helping work with really patchwork networks that professionals in the field really don't know what to do with because it's not in their operations manual. They don't have a flowchart for how to make an X501 network out of a copper wire fence, which is how a lot of communications in Africa was done until very recently. And so Jesse and I took the Hackers Without Borders idea, and we started developing it, and we started talking to other people in the community. And what a lot of people in the community then were talking about was, well, that sounds like a really great idea. I tried to get a research project going, and I tried to get grant funding, and then I filled everything out, and the people who were willing to give me the grant, they were really excited about the idea until they asked me what organization I work for. And I said, they said, I don't work for an organization. I work out of my garage. I have a side job, which is completely unrelated to tech. And even though they were really excited and they really wanted to fund me, I didn't have an organization that would watch over the funds, that would make sure that I was spending them responsibly. And so I lost out on a lot of this grant funding. And this is the same story that we started hearing over and over and over again, that there was no organization or foundation out there that would specifically help people who were not otherwise affiliated with the research community get grant funding, administer grant funding, and help them work on the projects that they were doing in their own garages and in their houses. And then, so the idea started out as Hackers Without Borders, and we thought, there's a much bigger need we feel in the community right now, that we need to have sort of an umbrella organization that will allow people who aren't otherwise affiliated in academics or in the corporate sphere get and use the grant funding that's out there. Because there are a lot of different grants out there that I think a lot of people in this room would qualify for, but they can't use them because they don't have that umbrella organization. Another thing we found is that people who are very technically skilled and willing to use those skills for the better good of the community are absolutely horrible at managing their finances. That one of the reasons that I think I became an accountant was to help a lot of my friends just do very simple tax work and do very simple bookkeeping, because for some reason, and this probably could be a great academic paper out there, but I still can't find out why hackers are so bad at balancing their checkbook. It's really bad. And so Jesse and I, we went into DEF CON, and we were just talking. We said, we need to have a meeting. We need to sit down with a bunch of people here. We've got people coming from all over the globe. Let's sit down and get ideas going. Let's see what we can do about this. And so we invited a bunch of different people. One of those was Priest, who is, the head MC, big guy at DEF CON. We all went out to pizza right before DEF CON. And we were just talking about all the different things that we need to do, a lot of the problems that are going out there in the community. We said, we need to find some way to make it so that we can do all these different things and everything can be going, and that the real battle is all these people are trying to put us down, stick to the man. At this time I was an undergrad, so I was pulling the whole liberal, the man is trying to put us down rhetoric. And he told us, the real challenge is not fighting the man so much as it is going legit. Because believe it or not, it is actually much, much, much easier to get what you want done through the law than it is to try to go around the law. And again, this goes back to the whole hacker criminal ethic, that when you give people the chance to go through a bunch of different regulations and to get things done, or to just do it on the side outside of the system, I think the hacker community is much more prone to go outside of the system than to learn the regulations and to do all the different things and to do the due diligence, which is exactly what Priest was telling us to do. And so that's when the Hacker Foundation as an entity really started to take shape. He said, you need to go back home, start an organization, find out what the law is, go and get it done. And that's exactly what we did. I was living in California at the time, and a lot of our core constituents were living in California at the time. And so we started the Hacker Foundation as a California corporation. It was very easy to do. The state of California loves not